Voiceover Coffee Shop, episode 75.
Welcome to the Voiceover Coffee Shop, where we give you a glimpse into the world of the biggest voice actors in the industry over a delicious cup of coffee. And now, here's your host, voice actor Andrew Morrison.
Hi there, my name is Andrew Morrison, and welcome to the Voiceover Coffee Shop, where we start our day with some of the finest names in voiceover. If you'd like to get to know more about me, feel free to check out my website at andrewdmorrison.com. In this episode, we have a legend in the world of promos, trailers, and commercials, my good buddy Mark Ryder. Now, I could give you a laundry list of Ryder's extensive credits across numerous platforms, but for me, he was the unknown voice of many aspects of my childhood evolved into today's nostalgia. In-show narration for hundreds of TV networks from Fox to Shark Week, the trailer voice for numerous campaigns like Spider-Man No Way Home and Bullet Train, and the founder of VOLifecoach.com, where he arms up-and-coming talent with his Pro-cess. This man is truly a powerhouse in the world of voiceover. So join us as we talk about primal mindsets, fostering relationships in today's remote world, when to realize your representation isn't working out for you, and the obsessive pursuit of growth.
What's up?
How are you feeling, dude? How have you been?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good.
Good.
I don't know what the hell we were both thinking scheduling this thing at 2:30 in the afternoon. Like, I don't know about you, but at 2:30 is when I've never needed coffee more in my life, because it's that like hour after lunch, everything's settled, and I'm like ready for a nap.
Right. No, me too. And actually, I've been reading these recent studies on how coffee affects the brain. And so because it doesn't actually like give you energy, it just blocks the receptors that make you sleepy. Well, when you first wake up, those receptors are all clustered together because you just woke up. And so when you drink coffee right when you wake up, they haven't had time to disperse yet. And so why you get a 2 o'clock crash is because once coffee reaches its half-life, once the caffeine hits its half-life, then all of those clustered receptors are now going back out into your system. So
How do we wrangle the clusters?
You give yourself 30 to 45 minutes after you wake up to let those things disperse before you drink your coffee, and then you don't crash.
Wait, I'm supposed to wait 40 minutes
I know, it sucks. It sucks. I've been having trouble doing it. I got some electrolyte powder, and I've been mixing that with my water and trying to chug that first thing in the morning.
It's such a habit that, you know, like I'm not a habitual person in any way, shape, or form. I've never used drugs. I've never even really been a drinker or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee's my thing. Like, first thing, gotta have. Like, couldn't imagine like waiting 40 minutes. Like, I'm currently fasting right now. But the only thing I allow myself to actually eat when I'm fasting is coffee. I'll have black coffee.
What kind of fasting are you doing?
I do a little bit of long-term fasting.
How
like
long?
3-4 days.
Okay.
Yeah, I do it because it puts my body into a state of autophagy after about 18 to 21 hours.
Yeah.
At which point all the bad cells in your body get kicked out.
Right.
And you feel amazing. And for a dude in his early 50s like me, you know, inflammation takes over. And, you know, after 2 or 3 days of Taekwondo each week, I'm like walking around like a rickety old man. And so if I get my body in that state, all of a sudden I feel great, feel amazing again. So why do you ask? You actually got excited for like a split second there.
Because I do intermittent fasting, and I do it for a couple of reasons.
I did intermittent fasting when I was your age, and it worked.
And see, I've been thinking about doing the 3-day fast for that exact reason, because it gets all the bad stuff out. Because when you're feeding yourself, you're not just feeding the good cells, you're also feeding the bad cells. And so I was thinking about doing a 2 or 3 day fast for that exact reason. But I do intermittent fasting for multiple reasons. One, for the cell thing, but two, also for the productivity mindset, because I'm very primal in the way that I market and the way that I work. And so I feel like as human beings, I want to be a little bit hungry when I'm marketing, because that tells my primal brain it's time to hunt, it's time to be productive, it's time to work. I haven't earned food yet, I haven't hunted it yet. And so I do something like kind of along those lines. But
no, I totally get that, because I remember when I first started doing this long-term fasting stuff, I had to find a way to psych myself into doing it because it's hard. Anybody can fast for a day, right? But when
Right.
you start getting 2, 3, 4 days in, it is a massive mind fuck. And so, I mean, like you get to a point where all you're doing is thinking about food, right? So
Right.
the mindset that I chose to go with was, okay, well, what if I was a caveman? What if it was 1,000 years ago? And, I wasn't able to track down, find, and kill that prey until Wednesday afternoon, and I started my fast on Sunday, so that was the one thing that got me through. And I always made sure they say you're supposed to like break your fast with y- something light, kind of like
Right.
broth or something like that. And
Mm.
I just like that, just broth, just the word doesn't even sound right.
Right.
Just ugh. It's pretty much ugh. So long story short, I always break my fast with meat.
I do too. I'm actually going back onto the carnivore diet. But yeah, no, that's what I do is I break my fast with meat because it's one of the best absorbed, especially grass-fed beef. It's one of the best absorbed things for your body.
Well, it's apparently working for you because your eyes look all bright and shiny and stuff, whereas
Thanks.
opposed to mine, I look like I'm about ready to pass out.
So how do you take your coffee, man?
Coffee for me has always, I'll tell you when I had my first sip of coffee.
Okay.
I was at a funeral when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And it was one of those family funerals where it took days for the whole process to happen. And so back then, like nobody cared what the kids did. And I was the only grandchild back then.
Oh Lord.
So while everybody else was upstairs doing what you do at a funeral, I was downstairs where the snacks were and the coffee. And I discovered my first cup of coffee and I saw an adult pour sugar into it. And I was like, that sounds amazing. So the adult did like a couple of scoops. So I did a couple of scoops and I was like, oh, that's good. And so here I am, like 5, 6 years old, and I'm done, and I'm just chugging coffee. Since then, I have gotten away from putting anything in my coffee except for I will do a flavored cream or every now and then.
Okay.
I really, really like Dunkin' Donuts creamer.
Okay. What
And
flavor?
it's like just a cream. It's like a vanilla cream.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't put anything else in there anymore. None of the sweet stuff.
So whether you drink it black, are you snobby about the type of beans that you get, or you just whatever's at the store?
Here's the thing. When it comes to coffee, I'll also tell you when I
Hmm.
had the greatest cup of coffee in my life
Okay.
was I vividly remember I was in Portland, Oregon for a job interview. This was back when I was doing radio. And I was out of work, and so I went out there for an interview. And I found myself at a Starbucks, and this was before Starbucks was Starbucks, right?
Hmm.
This was like Starbucks was like a thing,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a thing. It was like an underground. It wasn't like an on every corner thing. It was like you had to go out of your way to get to one.
Uh-huh.
So I just happened to be at one, and I had the greatest cup of coffee in my life at this little one in Portland. And I went up to him afterwards because I had just asked for a pour over,
Yeah.
you know, and I didn't, I wasn't a snob about beans or anything like that. It was the greatest cup of coffee I ever had in my life. And so I went up to the counter. I was like, what the fuck was that? That was amazing. Like, I need to know. And it ended up being a rainforest blend from, I believe, the Amazon or something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, And so I had ever since then been on the quest to find that exact bean combination, and I haven't been able to.
Okay.
I keep trying, like every now and then someone will tell me, "Oh, I've got a company that does the best," you know, uh, what do they call it? Roasting. Oh, I got a roaster. I got a buddy. He's a roaster. You got to try his stuff. And yeah, I try his stuff, and I buy 2 bags, and that's it because it's never as good. So, but I feel like too, I feel like as you get older, your palate changes,
Hmm.
and coffee for some reason to me doesn't taste the same as it used to.
What do you mean?
Now it's more habit, It's more because I need it. It's like a smoke
Okay.
than it is for the taste anymore, which
Okay.
sounds sad, even me saying it out loud.
Well, see, that's why I do like to buy good coffee. Like, I mean, I'll cut corners other places, but I do like to buy good coffee because it is habitual, and I like to enjoy that habit. Because if not, why do it? 'Cause, I mean, I get it for waking up and stuff, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so how did you start in voiceover? Like, you said you used to be a radio guy. How did you transition from being a radio guy to hopping into the voiceover industry and doing this gig full time?
The answer was necessity. I had been corporately downsized 3 times from big morning show jobs
Okay.
because the budgets were shrinking and they weren't able to pay $250,000 anymore to a morning guy. They're like, hey, you could still keep the job, but we'll pay you 50. And I'm like, no. And so I got downsized a lot. And in the process of doing that and being replaced by syndication,
Hmm.
I just had one of those moments with God where I was like, how am I supposed to take what you've given me and use it in a different way? And this was way back in the early 2000s. And like voiceover really wasn't even like as much of a, I don't know, it wasn't so like you mentioned voiceover today, and
Right.
people kind of understand what it is and they get it.
Right.
But 20 some years ago, they were like, huh? What is that? So it's evolved a lot over the last 20 years. But when I first got into it, there was very little internet. It was just in the beginning of the internet world. Um, and so I was looking for an out to answer your question. How can I take the gifts that God gave me and use them in a different way? And somehow that got placed on my heart. And I did it simultaneously with my radio job for another 10 years before saying goodbye full time to radio for good.
So what did those like first initial moves look like when you were trying to go into voiceover full time? Like were you door to door marketing? Were you like networking? Were you sending emails? Like how were you finding your place in the industry and where you felt you would be happy?
The answer is yes.
Yes.
Everything that anything and everything that anyone has ever done to try and get their foot in the door somewhere,
Hmm.
I tried. And I think that it's very similar to any other industry where you can't push your timeline. It happens as it happens. You just have to be consistent and you have to be good and you have to be available and you can't force it. It's like a relationship. You can't just be like, love me. I
Right.
want you to love me now. Tell me you love me. It's never going to work like that in voiceover. So for me, I don't think I can answer the question very specifically, uh, but I can say that it took a lot of time. It took a lot of time and patience. And, luckily I had that other thing. I feel bad for people that have nothing else right now except for I've chosen this voiceover path and it's year one. I'm like, oh God, that they're good. Like, how much money do you have in your bank? Because
Right.
this is going to be a ride and it's either going to kill you or make you strong.
And you're right, those relationships do take time. Um, Being a promo guy myself, I've noticed a big shift where even promo work has started to be less directed. Where they have you had that same thing where they're just sending you the promo work and you're just sending it back and they no longer are doing directed sessions or anything like that?
I don't think that's changed much. I mean, I would say I'm newer into the promo world, meaning I've been doing it for a little over 10 years.
Mhm.
And in the 10 years that I've been doing promo, it has pretty much almost always been unsupervised work. Um, Occasionally there's different networks that, want somebody in, you know, has it, has it gotten a little worse thanks to COVID? Yeah, I think so. But I've gotten used to it and I know what the
Mhm.
producers want, which is they just want a lot.
Right.
Just give them a lot of choices. When it's unsupervised, like you can't go too long.
Right. Well, I guess what I was getting to with things being unsupervised, how do you foster new relationships in those kinds of settings?
Oh, that's interesting. No, that's a great question. Um, it's different. You
Mm,
really got to go out of your way, because you don't have those moments that you used to have, over the phone.
right.
Um, I'm a big believer in sending actual notes, like handwriting something,
Hmm.
remembering when it's someone's birthday, uh, acknowledging them. When you see something on their LinkedIn that they did that didn't involve you,
Hmm.
making sure you give them the proper attaboy or attagirl.
Yeah.
You know, um, it's you definitely have to be more creative, to foster relationships. But at the same time, I think that people people can tell just because of, for the most part, a lot of us we're very front facing,
Right.
to the whole world, and people can tell the type of person that you are from your social media,
Hmm.
and they can very quickly decide, do I like this guy or do I not like this guy? And sometimes the relationship just continues because of social, you
Hmm.
know, like I was the voice of AMC Plus for the first 3 years that it existed, right? And so because of that, I was also doing some network stuff for AMC as well. Um, and then COVID hit, and all those budgets dried up, and they weren't doing any more promos with any voices on them. Period. And then 3 years later, I get a message out of the blue saying, "Hey, we're doing this movie thing. Can we get you on this?" And I'm like, "Where you been?" You know?
Yeah.
And when we actually did the session, I remember the gentleman telling me, he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been paying attention to what you've been doing for the last 3, 4 years." And I'm like, "Oh shit, are we even like?" I At that point, I didn't even realize I've forgotten that we were connected on social media because it's kind of on autopilot.
Right. So how are you marketing to build new relationships now? Because there's always that balance between getting into front of as many people as possible, but also trying to build a genuine connection. And that's hard to do on a first impression, especially in like an email or a cold call or whatever. So like what are you doing to try to build that out the gate? Like how are you marketing yourself now?
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to try and not sound like an arrogant dick.
Okay.
Okay, it's
Go for
hard
it.
for me to say this though,
Go
but
for it.
I also find it I'm very proud of the fact that I've never had to. I've
Okay.
never had to, because I decided a long time ago that was not going to be the way I do business.
Okay.
I don't want to cold call anybody. Like, I will use LinkedIn, you know, to foster relationships and meet new people. Um, but beyond that, there's no mass mailings, there's no emailings, there's none of that stuff. It's just word of mouth, and a 20-year body of work and a lot of auditions. So when you have a big team around you funneling you auditions, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about.
Right.
You, me, everybody else, we're all in a race to 100 auditions.
Right.
Faster we can get to 100 auditions, we're booking a job, right? And so when you set yourself up with a big team around you, where you're getting through those 100 auditions in 2.5 days, 3 days, um, you don't have to network so much and market yourself so much. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to when you can.
Hmm.
And I hope that every single person listening figures out a way to not have to someday, because it's a good feeling. It's a cool feeling, you know. Because
Yeah.
I get asked all the time, like, well, do you have any tips you can share when it comes down to like networking and marketing? And I'm like, I'm not gonna rewrite any rocket scientist manual here, but I'm just gonna say, be yourself,
Yeah.
you know, be you, and let them see the true colors of you and who you are and what you're all about. Um, and then let it organically evolve,
Yeah,
you
it
know?
it is different for everybody. But I guess what I'm asking is when you are making that first impression, whether it be a LinkedIn message, how are you taking that first message and saying who you are? You know what I mean? Like that's a difficult thing
That's a
equation
good
to put
question.
together.
All
You know
right.
what I mean?
So now what I'm about to tell you
Mhm.
is going to make me sound like an arrogant dickhead.
Bring it on.
But I'm going to tell you that the last time that I made a representation change in a regional market,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to say which one, okay?
Okay.
But I've always been a call it like it is kind of guy. And so when I realized that there was this one agency that really wasn't performing for me,
Mhm.
and it's pointless, it's for anybody listening, if you have an agent that does nothing for you, you don't have an agent. Okay. There's no point
Okay.
of having that. If you're not getting the opportunities, if you're not getting the bookings, then you don't have an agent. You need to be looking somewhere else. Okay. So I did that. And when I reached out to the other agency, I literally said these words: "Hi, this is Ryder. I'm kind of a big deal in this industry." I called it like it was. I'm
Yeah.
like, listen, I've been doing this for 20 years. I make a lot of money doing it. I don't have representation that is doing anything for me right now in this market. Would you like to work together? And their immediate response was, yeah.
So, so,
So
so what overall time frame did you look at to decide they weren't working for you? Like, was there a period of time where you're like, I wasn't booking for 3 months, or I wasn't getting auditions for 6 months, or like, what
I
what
tell I
what
tell
time do
people
you use
I tell
to
people
audit?
that if this is one of my coaching practices
Hmm.
is once you've realized that there's a problem, it's probably been about 6 months. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then you're going to think about it for a little bit, which now all of a sudden you're at 9 months. At that point, in my mind, I'm putting an agency on about a 3 month. So it's about a whole year. So a little probationary period where you do the right thing and you call them up and you say, hey, I haven't been seeing much activity through you guys. Is everything good?
Hmm.
Because truth is, I've said this before in a different podcast. So if I'm repeating myself and you're hearing this again, I apologize. But it's it's important to know that sometimes shit happens at agencies where their
Right.
lists get destroyed, and all of a sudden you just might not be on the list because of something that happened internally or something that happened digitally, and you just didn't get anything for 3 months or 4 months. It's happened. So if you notice 3 or 4 months go by, check in
Yeah.
and find out, like, legit, are they just, was it an error, or are they just not, are they not working for you?
Gotcha. And what do you think it takes to be successful in VO in 2024?
I'll
Like, I mean,
repeat what I s-
that
I
means
will
something different to everybody, but
I will repeat what I said at voiceover Atlanta,
uh-huh.
because it came to me on my drive there.
Hmm.
And that was, a to be successful in 2024 in voiceover, it takes an almost unhealthy, relentless pursuit of passion and excellence. That's it. Like, you've got to give it your all and then some, because there's way too many of us out there,
Right.
and the scary part is that, the majority of people that are out there scrapping it, are maybe making 30 or 40 grand a year. And I decided a long time ago that if I was going to make a run, I was going to be in the top 2 or 3%. And if I'm not, then I'm done. Right. And I
Hmm.
and I got to the point where, yeah, I am in the top 2 or 3%. And I look back on it, and because I coach every single day, I coach new talent, experienced, seasoned talent every single day. Um, you can see and you can feel when you're around somebody who fucking wants it,
Yeah.
right? It feels good. You want more of that. It smells good, right? And so in part of my coaching, like, I'll tell you flat out, if you're going through the motions here while you're coaching with me, I guarantee you're never going to break out of that, you know, that lower divide,
Right.
in voiceover. I had a gentleman recently who told me that he's in pond B and he wants to be in pond A,
Mhm.
right? And I said, well, then everything has to change. Everything that you were doing before that got you into pond B is not acceptable anymore. It has to be that and then some. So this almost unhealthy desire to this like effervescent bubbling of passion to want to get to a different place in your career is what is needed. That and I really do think you have to be a good person, because this industry is full with more good people than bad people. And
Mhm.
I think that good people want to work with good people.
That's true. And so with you always wanting to grow and always wanting to get better and better and better and having that desire, what are you currently doing to invest in yourself? To get yourself to whatever you feel your next ceiling break is?
I don't think I have an answer to that question, because I don't know what I want next.
Okay, well then let me switch it. What different practices do you do to maintain adaptability and malleability in a constantly changing market?
Oh, okay. Um, I would say an insatiable desire to learn other people's things.
Okay.
Okay, because there's a reason why Will Arnett is asked for time and time again in specs,
Yeah.
right? He has a certain thing, just like, you fill in the blank. Patrick Warburton, um, Sam Elliott, Dennis Leary, Morgan Freeman. They all have thing, this thing that they do that makes them special,
Mhm.
right? And for the truth is, most of us, we don't have a ton of character. We're
Yeah.
just boring ass 30 to 40 to 50-year-old, you know. If you're not white, sorry. What I mean by that is we're just kind of boring white people. I'm looking at you, so I'm saying white people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I get what you mean.
And a lot of these scripts that are coming out these days don't require us. They're not calling for us. They're calling for something special.
Right.
And I'll admit it, like, I'm not that special. But what I've learned to do is I've learned to be able to channel the specialness of other people. And I really think that that is where I excel. Like, I'll give you an example. The other day, Fox had put out a audition request for an intro for the NASCAR race that just happened in Dover.
Mhm.
And they wanted something that was kind of scary, but not too sinister and over the top. And so I thought to myself, okay, well, what do I have in my bag of read styles that would work well for this? And I went and I did my Vincent Price read, and I did that first. But then I thought to myself, I'm like, I think that's probably too much character, probably too much. So I stripped it down, and I did Vincent Price's cadence, but without so much of the accent. And that ended up booking, and I didn't even have to do a session. They took it straight from the audition. And so, had I gone to it and said, well, what does scary writer sound like? And I'll just do a scary writer voice, that would have never booked. Because if you know me, there's nothing really scary about me,
That's true.
except for maybe my stature, you know?
Yes.
So, a lot of times these scripts are not calling for a version of you. They're calling for something else that you have to put a mask on and wear.
So how do you turn that into something tangible that you teach? How are you able to pull that out of your students? How are you building their toolkits?
Well, I tell them that, so either A, you're a creative person or you're an analytical person.
Uh-huh.
Analytical people have a hard time dealing with this shit, because this is like
Yeah.
they're just like, I don't know what you're saying. You're speaking French.
That was one of the
Um,
hardest part about me getting into the industry is I'm an analytical person. I
yeah,
had to learn to let my creative side bleed through.
yes, yes. So to answer your question, how do I teach it? I say the easiest way to
Mhm.
learn how to channel someone else's essence and character is to think back to when you were young. The shows, the movies, the artists, the comedians, those people from when you were young, they still live within you, because that was when you were like your most susceptible to character, right? So, I can say, read this line, but read it as Mickey Mouse. And instantly, everybody will know exactly what I mean, whether or not you can do it or not, but you can hear it. And the thing is, you have to be able to hear and you have to be able to see the person that you're kind of channeling. And so it's I find it a lot easier to teach people to go back to their past. Say, give me 5 shows, that were important to you when you were growing up. And they say Friends. And I go, okay, how would Joey read this? And they go, oh, okay. Boom. And they read that. Or for the older folk, how would Andy from Mayberry read this?
Right.
How would the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air read this? There's just, how do I teach it? I try to make it as easy as possible. And some people get it right off the bat, and some other people have to work at it. But nothing in life that is worthy is easy to make happen most of the time.
Right.
It takes work. That's why they call this, the voice arts.
Right. So what got you into the demo production side of it? Like, I mean, I know you only do that. You are very vocal that you only do that for a select few people, and those are people that you coach with. But like, I know you used to work in radio, but like, are you proficient in audio engineering? Was that a learned skill? Did you just feel that people's stories could be told better?
Why do I do demos? Because
Yeah.
there's so many fucking bad ones out there being quote unquote professionally produced.
Then what
That's
makes
why.
a good demo?
What makes a good demo? Well, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you what makes a bad demo.
Okay.
One that makes you question whether or not it was professionally produced or not. One when you're listening to it and you're going, did he do this himself? I'm not sure. That's the kiss of death right there. So what makes a good demo? What makes a great demo is one that ends and leaves the person on the other end going, I want more of that. That's what makes a great demo. And that varies from person to person. And it all comes down to the relationship that you have with the person that you're working with. And so that's kind of one of the problems that I have with the demo process, is that for the most part, a lot of people are paying money to work with someone that they don't know, and vice versa.
Right.
Never seen him before, never talked to him before. There's no relationship of any kind whatsoever. Well, how are you supposed to bring out the best of somebody like that in that situation? It's stressful. It's kind of scary. So why do I only do demos for my clients? Because I'm not stupid. I want my demos to be good. I don't want there to be a bad demo out there that, that speaks volumes for, oh God, I got this demo from Ryder and I wasn't really sure about that.
So what is one of the biggest problem areas that you've seen in trying to coach new people, at least recently?
I would say the lack of understanding that this takes time, and that you have to look at every dollar spent on coaching as it's an investment in yourself and in your future, as opposed to just, oh God, I'm spending all this money. Because when you do that, you're coming from a place of fear. And so what I try to remind people, like, yes, this is an investment. Yes, this costs money. But you have to look at it like, dude, every week when I'm done with this session, I'm empowered. I feel better. I'm more confident. I've got more skills. I've got more tools to use in my auditions over the next couple of weeks before I work again. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Are there times in your career that you feel fear?
Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Because
Whenever I
you're
work with
Mark Ryder, like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, because like you are announcing big stuff and you're often in a room with a lot of people. And so like, but I also know that you're an introvert. And so like, how do you get beyond that? Like, how do you get beyond your own fears?
it's interesting. You almost have to, I look at it like I've jumped out of an airplane twice.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the mere fact that I did that and plummeted to the earth at like 150 miles an hour is the reason why I can get away with a lot of the stuff that I do today, because I go, well, I did that. I did that. I lived. So everything else should be easy.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's not. Like getting up in front of a room full of people at VO Atlanta, it may seem like I'm at home and that I'm enjoying myself, but inside I'm like, get me the fuck out of here. This is scary. I don't like it. So, but I'm a Libra. So I'm half that and I'm half the other. I'm half the, I love this. I need more of this, you know? But the question is, how do I manage the fear?
Yeah. How do you not get that clouded brain of like where your brain's just thinking about the fear instead of actually focusing on the action?
I feel like I've been lucky in the fact that call it genes or God or whatever, I've been equipped to be at my best in stressful situations.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like it takes a lot for me to shut down, for me to go, I just don't know what to do next. But for me, like if there's stress going on, I'm like, okay, let's go. How do I handle that? And it's the same thing like when you're working with a producer for the very first time, that this all started with fear. Whenever I work with somebody for the first time, I'm fearful of that because they don't know me, I don't know them. I'm trying to make a good impression. I want to be helpful, but I don't want to come off as bossy. You know, I want to be creative, but yet at the same time, I don't want to take away from their vision. You know, I want to be adaptable, but I also want them to know that I'm an individual and I'm an artist and I'm going to also want to put my own spin on stuff. So I go through a lot of all of that before I go into a session. And then I just remind myself, okay, we're going to jump off the diving board now and you're just going to be you. And the session's either going to be great or it's going to be okay. You know, but there's like, I think in all of my years of doing this, I think I've only had one really bad session.
Yeah. You want to talk about it?
I was working for the Tennis Channel and I was doing a narration project.
Okay.
And I was the wrong guy for the job. I should not have been hired. So first of all, let's begin the story by saying, really, I shouldn't have been there in the first place. They were trying to take me and they were trying to take a buffalo and turn him into a poodle. Okay. They wanted a very Tennis Channel read out of me. That's not me. Right. So why did you hire me? I don't know. But it got to a point where the producer was very condescending in every little bit of direction that I could not achieve, even though he could do it. And he would end his sentences by saying, thank you. But he didn't mean thank you. And I called
just like a dismissive thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah. If you could try it like this and not sound like so much of a trailer guy. Okay, thank you. And I'm like, listen here, dickhead. First of all, I am a trailer guy.
Right.
So, you know, like, don't say that like it's a bad thing, because one bad movie trailer is going to pay me about 100 times more than this session. So, did I say any of that out loud? No. Did I bite my tongue and be a fucking professional? Yes. Do I work for them anymore? Very sporadically.
Okay, then what's the best session you've ever had? I want to go full 180 on this.
That's hard, man. That's like asking Eddie Vedder what's his favorite Pearl Jam song.
What's the most memorable positive session?
I did a movie with Greg Kinnear about 7, 8 years ago where I was playing the part of a DJ. The movie actually starts with my voice.
Mhm.
And I went to do the session. Nobody fucking told me this, but I put my headphones on, the phone rings. I'm like, hello, it's Ryder. Yeah, hey, it's Greg Kinnear. I'm like, who? It's Greg Kinnear. Okay, you're fucking with me, right? Greg Kinnear is not going to direct me on this. He goes, yeah, yes, I am. So first I had to get over that. Talk about fear. Holy shit, I'm a big fan of this guy. Like, he's great, right? But that's how wrapped up he was in his own project. Like, he was legit going to tell me how to do the beginning of his movie and what he wanted.
That's cool.
And so that was a really cool, unique experience for me. And it's the first thing that just came to mind when you asked the question.
That's really, really cool. So, I mean, you talked about a lot about persistence, about the
Oh,
constant
by the way, the name of the
desire.
movie was Phil. If anybody wants to look it up, the movie was Phil.
Phil, I will be looking up
Phil.
that trailer.
Phil, like as in a dude's name.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
I think it went straight to Amazon Prime. But I don't care. I was still in it and I still get residuals.
Yeah. But you talked about that constant persistence, but I mean, I know for everybody, especially after doing it as long as you have done it, there have to be some mornings where you wake up where you're just exhausted and you don't what are your driving factors to keep pushing?
A kid in college and another one that's going to be there in 9 years. So yes, I mean, like, I'm going to be totally honest with you. There are days where okay, let me rephrase. I never have that problem in the morning. Never.
Right. Okay.
I am always ready to go. I'm excited as fuck. I love the auditioning process.
Yeah.
Give me as many as you possibly can. Where I have a problem is after that 2:30 in the afternoon funk that we started this whole show talking about.
Right.
Is this new thing that agents are doing where they're sending everything out with it ASAP, has to be done by 5 p.m.
And they're sending it out at 1.
And I'm just like, dude, I'm fucking fried right now. And you want me to somehow pull out my best? There are days where I just delete everything. And when I do that, I send it out to the universe with thanks. And I say, good luck to whomever else deserved this. You know, because that's the only way that I can deal with the stress. Right. Of like right now there's somebody listening to me going, what a dick, what an asshole. He deletes auditions. I don't get enough auditions and you're deleting them. But my point is, if you're not 100% in the headspace to kill that audition, then you shouldn't be doing it.
I got that. So why
you can't half-ass it? You can't half-ass it because they will hear
it. And you said that, like, you constantly have this drive and you constantly want it, but why do you want it? Everybody has a different reason for why they love voiceover or why they want to do this or why they love being behind the microphone. Why do you love voiceover?
First of all, I love getting the call that you got booked.
Yeah.
I love that. Second of all, why? So what was the initial question?
Why do you love voiceover, man? You just have this absolute love for it. And that comes from a different soul feeding place for everybody. And I want to know why voiceover feeds your soul. Why do you find such purpose in it? What is that to you?
Man, that is a deep question. You're making me think now. Because I'm a doer.
Right.
So
passionately love something for 20 years like that.
So if I wasn't a doer, I think it would be a different thing. But like voiceover is great because there's lots of boxes that you can just check off. It's like this giant honeydew list, right? And I'm a big fan of checking stuff off a list. there's a lot of professions out there where the job just never ends.
Right.
Right? There's no stop, there's no start, there's no beginning, there's no end. I really love the fact that, like I wake up and there's 22 emails and I'm going to do 22 auditions and then I'm done for now. There's like a start and a stop. So I think what I love more than anything about voiceover is that I am my own captain and I control my own destiny. And so years ago, when I was with Paradigm in New York, my then and still agent, Matt Ambrosia, was telling me about this older gentleman that I had met when I was at Star Treks in New York. I was there for some weekend and we shook hands, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he was like, yeah, I'm with Paradigm. I'm like, really? I'm with Paradigm. Huh. You're like really old. Dude was like almost 80, right? And Matt told me that this guy only works 1 day a week. And I just thought, man, that's cool. I want to do that someday. Now, Matt did caution me by saying it's very difficult to book anybody who will only work 1 day a week. Right. Because he's only auditioning 1 day a week. But I took that and I tucked it away. And I got to a point where I was working a lot and I was working too much to the point where it was unhealthy. And all I was doing was working. And I said, hey, dude, reminder, you're the captain, you're in control. So if you need some more time to live life, to decompress from the stress of all of what you got to do, then guess what? You can choose to do that. And so I did. About a year ago, I chose to stop working on Fridays. I just don't work. Every weekend's a 3-day weekend. That was the idea. Okay. Now, mind you, there are going to be, times during certain seasons, sports seasons, certain political seasons where, yeah, I'm going to have to do a session or 2 or 5. But the way I've gotten around it is, like I would say maybe 2/3 of those I'm off and I'm out on my horse riding in the forest. And if a session comes in, it's going to be late in the afternoon and I've practically had the day off anyway. So it still counts. But I don't audition on Fridays anymore. Anything that comes in that even looks good, I'm just like, if you can't wait till Monday, then I'm not doing it. Because you have to be able to say when. Because otherwise, this industry can be very overwhelming and it will chew you up and spit you out and not care about you. So the only person at the end of the day that's going to be in control of that is you. And so that's one of the things that I just, my buddy Matt Baker, the other day, he decided that his priorities were a little bit out of whack. And he used to start his day by going to the gym and working out. Right. And, he's a monster. So he's in the gym for like a couple hours. Right. But then he realized that his auditions were suffering because of that, because he was rushing to get them in for the deadline. So smartly, he just decided, I'm the captain of my own ship. Let's switch that shit. So that's what he did. So now he does the auditions first, goes to the gym afterwards. Just about setting the priorities. And, sometimes the priorities are going to be the work, and sometimes the priorities are going to be yourself as a human being.
So what is your average day? I mean, I know it differs, but like, what does your average day look like now? Because I mean, you do coaching, you've got a farm, you've got you do your horses, you've got a VO career, and you've got return clients, and you've got kids, and you've got like all of these different hats that you wear. So what does your average day generally look like?
I'm up at 6. I'm out with the animals, taking care of the horses and stuff by 7. Emerson's off to school at 7:40. I'm usually in the booth by 8:15, 8:30, auditioning my brains off for probably about the next hour to an hour and a half. Then I'm doing radio imaging projects. And then from there, it's, if there's any like extra projects that come in that are unsupervised. First coaching session at 11 a.m., lunch at noon, coach again at 1, and then that whole thing repeats itself because by that point, the audition box is full again.
Right.
Right. And more radio stations have asked for stuff. So it just sort of repeats again. It's sort of like Groundhog's Day, but twice in the same day. And then I'm usually I'm usually out of here to go to Taekwondo in the afternoon at about 5 o'clock. And the thing with the movie trailer world is that the movie trailer world doesn't even start yet, because it's only 2 o'clock on the East Coast then.
Right.
So by the time I'm home from Taekwondo and have put the horses away and are sipping a cocktail and sitting down,
The love-hate of East Coast.
that is when the phone goes off and Jason Helsner is asking me for either a trailer scratch or there's a booking or whatever. And so it can feel never ending. And I do have to remind myself of the blessings that that is sometimes. Because your first response is when you're sitting down to watch TV with the wife and you've got a cocktail in your hand and you're just like ready to zen out.
Right.
And then you got to go to work. The first word out of most normal human beings' mouth when they look at their phone is, fuck.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I am like most human beings, but then I get in here and I have to reset myself and go, dude, this is what you asked for. All those years ago, this is what you asked for. You're getting it now. So you have to decide, do you want it? Because this universe will take it away just like that. And I constantly remind myself of that. And I go, nope, I want this. I want this more than anything. So I got to, I leave that baggage at the door, come in here and be my best.
Awesome sauce.
And that's a day at the Ryder Family Ranch.
And if you were to send yourself a letter and send it back in time to before all of that, from where you're sitting now, what would you tell your past self?
That's an easy one. And this is my default answer to that, because I actually use this in coaching.
Okay.
I would tell myself to stop buying every fucking mic and piece of equipment that somebody else has recommended.
Right.
And I would do the smart thing and say, go to a studio and hear yourself on 5 or 6 microphones, invest in yourself, spend $300, rent a studio for an hour, have them set up 5 or 6 microphones and find the one that sounds best on you. As opposed to going through 19 different microphones in the first 10 years of your career because you're not happy with any of them. Oh, I bought a Manly reference mic because Don LaFontaine used it. Of course I did. Fucking hated myself on that microphone. I sounded like dog shit. And I lost $1,000 on it. And I'm pretty sure I lost $1,000 on about 10 other microphones as well. So that's what, if I could go back, I would say, and this is what I coach, the difference between somebody who's a hobbyist and somebody who's an amateur and somebody who's a professional is the mindset that I'm going to do it right the first time. And so I would tell myself, listen, dude, go back and do it right. Do it right and spend the money. Don't be cheap. My first microphone was a Mojave MA200 because it supposedly sounded at the time like a U87 clone. Okay, great. Awesome. I bought it. $599. Sounded like shit. Hated it. And then I did that time and time again with mic pre's and all this other stuff. So yeah, if I could go back in time, I would say come at everything from the mindset of being an entrepreneur and not a hobbyist. Because if you have a goal, and that goal is to kiss your 9-to-5 goodbye, then what you're replacing it with isn't a hobby. It's a new life, right? And so you can't just, it's like you can't say, all right, well, I want to replace my day job and I want to open a restaurant. But until then, I'm just going to sit on the corner and sell lemonade.
Right.
It's stupid. You have to start planning for the restaurant. Everything that you should be doing is for the restaurant. And so when you open that restaurant, are you going to be like serving freaking paper plates? No. You want people to come back. You want people to have a good feeling. So you're going to invest in the right stuff. And that's what I'm saying in a long-winded way is you can't do this half-assed. Can you? Sure. But are you going to make 10 grand? Yes. And that's probably it. Because, you can't show up to the Indy 500 in a Pinto. You're going to get laughed at.
I like that.
They're going to laugh you out. You got to show up with the right stuff. That's what I would go back in time and say.
Fantastic. This has been awesome. Where can people find you and where can people find your coaching?
VOLifecoach.com is my website. You can go on there and you can check out, who I am, what I'm all about, even though if you've made it this far,
Yeah.
But my rates are on there for both coaching and for demos and stuff like that. And I coach all levels, whether you have been in this for 15 years and just need a way to level up your game, or whether or not you've been in it for a year and you're just getting started and you just need a wingman to help you to get started and to help bolster your confidence. I think that's one of the misunderstood things of great coaches is that great coaches, you walk away from the experience feeling good.
Right.
Okay. If you ever coach with someone and you walk away from that experience on multiple times not feeling good, then that's not the right coach for you. Right? Because their job, all of this, everything that we do, people ask me all the time, they're like, if you whittle it all down to one thing. The one thing is confidence. If you don't have it in what you're doing, in every facet of this industry, from the performance to your equipment, to your editing, to taking direction in a live directed session, all that stuff, if you're not completely confident in those things, then you're not going to succeed. And that's what your coach should be there to do, help you build that confidence.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming on, man. This has been awesome.
Enjoyed myself, man. Let's do it again.
I really hope you enjoyed Ryder's unique perspective on not just what goes on inside of his side of the booth, but also this generous peek into the mind of never-ending growth. If you'd like to hear Ryder's work, you can visit rydervo.com. And if you'd like to join his coaching program, you can find that over at VOLifecoach.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you for listening to the VoiceOver Coffee Shop. For more information on guests, new episodes, and more, be sure to visit vocoffeeshop.com and our YouTube channel or your favorite podcast streaming platform. You know you want to.